Picture this. A global superpower gets completely taken over by foreign invaders, and they don't just raid a few cities and leave. They stay. They take the throne, become the new masters, and start running the show. It sounds like something out of Game of Thrones, but this is the real story of how a group of nomads from the plains of Mongolia conquered the most powerful and populous empire on Earth. But this isn't just another tale of swords and conquest. It's the story of Kublai Khan, grandson of the legendary Genghis Khan. And Kublai's ambition went way beyond just defeating China. He wanted to become its emperor. He would found his own dynasty, build a stunning new capital city, and try to do the impossible. Fuse the warrior culture of the Mongol steppe with the ancient, sophisticated world of Imperial China. This is the story of that collision of worlds, and the one man who stood right in the middle of it all. To get Kublai, you have to get the world he was born into. His grandpa, Genghis Khan, had built the biggest land empire in history, a monster of a territory held together by pure military genius and iron-willed loyalty. But when Genghis died, he didn't just hand the keys to one person. Instead, the empire was split between his sons and grandsons into territories called khanates. And right away, this sparked some pretty intense family rivalries. Kublai was born in 1215, and unlike a lot of his fellow Mongols who saw settled civilizations as soft and corrupt, he was fascinated by Chinese culture. A lot of that was thanks to his mom, Ariq Böke. She was a Christian princess from a Turkic tribe, and she made sure her sons weren't just skilled warriors, but were also educated in the ways of the people they might one day rule. This unique combo of Mongol grit and cultural curiosity made Kublai stand out. His older brother, Mongol Khan, the reigning Great Khan, noticed. In 1251, he put Kublai in charge of northern China, and Kublai crushed it. He brought in Chinese advisors, got the economy humming, and earned a reputation for being a surprisingly fair ruler. A big change from the usual Mongol conqueror playbook. He was building power and a reputation that was about to be seriously tested. The whole game changed in 1259. Mongol Khan was on a campaign against the Song Dynasty in southern China when he suddenly died. The Mongol Empire didn't really have a clear line of succession, so his death created a massive power vacuum. Two brothers stepped up to claim the title of Great Khan: Kublai, with his power base in China, and his younger brother, Ariq Böke, who was back in the traditional Mongol capital, Karakorum. What came next was the Toluid Civil War, a showdown that would decide the future of the Mongol Empire. Ariq Böke had the old guard on his side, the Mongol traditionalists who believed the heart of the empire belonged on the steppes. They saw Kublai as being way too cozy with the Chinese, basically abandoning the true Mongol way of life. But Kublai had an ace up his sleeve. He controlled the farms and cities of northern China, giving him a massive advantage in resources and soldiers. While Ariq Böke held the symbolic heart of the empire, Kublai held its wallet. In 1260, they both held their own leadership councils, and both were declared Great Khan. The empire now had two bosses, and a civil war was on. For 4 brutal years, they fought it out. Kublai's armies, well-fed and well-supplied by China, slowly choked off all resources going to Karakorum. Isolated and starving, Ariq Böke finally had to surrender in 1264. Kublai was now the undisputed Great Khan. But that victory had a steep price. The civil war shattered the unity of the Mongol world for good. The other Khanates in the west pretty much became their own independent empires. Kublai's real power was now firmly in the east, in China. With his brother out of the picture, Kublai turned his attention south to the last piece of the puzzle, the Southern Song Dynasty. This was no walk in the park. The Southern Song was rich, technologically advanced, and had a population of tens of millions. For decades, they had successfully fought off Mongol attacks. The final conquest was a long, grueling war that dragged on for over a decade. The main event was the incredible siege of the twin cities of Xiangyang and Fancheng. For 5 straight years, from 1268 to 1273, the Mongols laid siege to this fortress, which was the gateway to the wealthy Yangtze River basin. This battle was a showcase of medieval military tech, featuring terrifying counterweight trebuchets designed by Persian engineers that could launch massive boulders and smash city walls to pieces. When Xiangyang finally fell in 1273, it was the beginning of the end for the Song. Kublai's armies flooded into the heart of southern China. The Song court, crippled by infighting, started to fall apart. In 1276, the capital city of Linan surrendered, and the child emperor was taken prisoner. But Song loyalists fought on for 3 more years. The final, tragic act of the war happened at sea. At the Battle of Yamen in 1279, a massive Mongol fleet cornered the last of the Song navy. The battle was a slaughter. A top Song official, knowing it was all over, grabbed the 8-year-old emperor and jumped into the sea, choosing death over surrender. Just like that, the Song dynasty was gone. For the first time ever, all of China was under the rule of a foreign power. Kublai Khan was now the master of China, but he knew he couldn't rule this ancient land like a typical Mongol warlord. He had to become a Chinese emperor. So, even before the war was officially over, he made a brilliant PR move. In 1271, he declared a new dynasty with a Chinese name, the Yuan, meaning Great Origin. This was a clever way of saying he wasn't just some foreign invader, but the rightful heir to the Chinese dynasties, claiming the mandate of heaven for himself. Then he started one of the greatest building projects of the era, a brand new capital. He moved the center of his empire from the Mongolian steppe to China and built the city of Dadu, or Great Capital, right where modern-day Beijing is. Dadu was an engineering marvel, a massive, perfectly organized grid of grand palaces, canals, and packed markets, designed to be the nerve center of his empire. But running the place was a delicate balancing act. He used Chinese-style government systems to manage the country, but made sure the real power stayed with the Mongols. Top government jobs were reserved for Mongols and their foreign allies, especially Central Asians and Middle Easterners he trusted. He created a rigid, 4-class social system: Mongols on top, their foreign allies second, Northern Chinese third, and at the very bottom, the Southern Chinese, who got hit with the heaviest taxes and most restrictions. Kublai Khan had pulled off the impossible, uniting China and creating a dynasty that tried to mash 2 completely different cultures together. If you're digging this wild story of conquest and culture clash, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into history's most amazing moments. Under Kublai's rule, Yuan China became one of the most open and cosmopolitan places on Earth. For the time, his policy of religious tolerance was incredible. Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Christianity, all were practiced freely, which attracted smart and talented people from all over the world. The most famous of these visitors was, of course, a young merchant from Venice named Marco Polo. He showed up around 1275 with his father and uncle and ended up working for the Khan himself. Kublai was super impressed with the kid and sent him on missions all over his empire. Marco Polo stuck around for 17 years, and his book, The Travels of Marco Polo, gave Europe its first real look at the mind-blowing power and wealth of Kublai Khan's China. This era, sometimes called the Pax Mongolica or Mongol Peace, made the Silk Road safer than ever, and trade across Asia exploded. The Yuan also took a Song dynasty invention, paper money, and made it the standard across the entire empire, a first for China. A super-efficient postal relay system, basically a medieval Pony Express, meant messages and officials could travel at incredible speeds. Culture also flourished in some really unexpected ways. Kublai temporarily got rid of the traditional civil service exams, which meant a whole class of educated scholars suddenly had no government jobs. So, what did they do? they turned to the arts. This led to a golden age of Chinese theater and opera, and brand new styles of painting. It was a bizarre, unique fusion of Chinese, Mongol, and Persian influences, creating something totally new. But for all his success, Kublai Khan wasn't invincible. His ambition was bigger than China, and he launched a series of incredibly expensive and disastrous invasions. The most famous and most catastrophic were his attempts to conquer Japan. In 1274, he sent his first invasion fleet, about 900 ships packed with tens of thousands of Mongol, Chinese, and Korean troops. They ran into fierce resistance from Japan's samurai warriors, but the real enemy wasn't the samurai. It was the weather. A sudden, massive typhoon smashed into the fleet while it was anchored, forcing a humiliating retreat. Kublai didn't take failure well. He became obsessed. In 1281, he sent a second, even bigger force, one of the largest naval invasions in history, with over 4,000 ships and more than 100,000 men. Again, the Japanese fought them to a standstill. And again, history repeated itself. A second, even more powerful typhoon slammed into the fleet and practically wiped it off the map. The Japanese believed these storms were sent by the gods to protect them. They named them Kamikaze, or divine wind. For Kublai, these failures were a devastating blow. They drained his treasury, shattered his image of invincibility, and planted the seeds for the eventual downfall of his dynasty. The last years of Kublai's life were filled with sadness. His favorite wife, Chabi, died in 1281, and his chosen heir, his son Genghis, died in 1285. Kublai fell into a deep depression and reportedly found comfort in binge eating and heavy drinking, which destroyed his health. When Kublai Khan died in 1294, he was 78 years old. He left behind a massive empire, but one that was already in trouble. The Yuan Dynasty he created would hang on for another 70 years or so, but it was weakened by a string of incompetent rulers, family infighting, and widespread corruption. The harsh social hierarchy and crushing taxes created deep anger among the Chinese population. When natural disasters like floods and famines struck, many saw it as a sign that the Mongols had lost the mandate of heaven. That anger finally exploded in 1351 with the Red Turban Rebellion, a massive peasant uprising fueled by anti-Mongol nationalism. One of the rebellion's leaders was a clever and ruthless former peasant named Zhu Yuanzhang. Over the next decade, he crushed his rivals and the Yuan armies. In 1368, his forces captured the capital, Dadu. He declared a new dynasty, the Ming. The last Mongol emperor fled back to the steppes, and the great Mongol experiment in China was officially over. Kublai Khan's legacy is as huge and complicated as the man himself. He was a conqueror who dreamed of bringing two cultures together. He was a Mongol Khan who became a Chinese emperor, uniting China after centuries of chaos and kicking off an era of incredible global trade and exchange. He was the ruler whose legendary court at Xanadu became a worldwide symbol of unbelievable wealth and luxury. But his reign also created immense suffering, a rigid social order, and led to military blunders that ultimately sank the dynasty he worked so hard to build. He was truly a man of two worlds, the open steppe and the imperial palace, and his entire life was a bold and ultimately impossible attempt to make them one. Was Kublai Khan's greatest achievement his conquest or his effort to build a multicultural empire? What was his biggest mistake? Let us know down in the comments. And for more deep dives into history's most incredible figures, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.